No names, no answers. Just cold faces staring back from history, carrying secrets we may never uncover. On a humid morning in May 1968, the quiet town of Georgetown, Kentucky, was about to become the center of a chilling mystery. Wilbur Riddle, a local well driller, was walking along the overgrown shoulder of US Route 25, searching for glass insulators to sell for scrap. The sun was just beginning to burn through the mist, and the only sounds were the distant calls of birds and the crunch of gravel beneath his boots. As he moved through the tall grass, something caught his eye: a heavy green canvas tarp, oddly out of place among the wildflowers and weeds. The tarp was tightly wrapped, its shape unnatural, and a faint, sickly odor hung in the air. Wilbur hesitated, then pulled back the edge. What he found would haunt him for the rest of his life: the decomposing body of a young woman, hidden from the world. The authorities arrived quickly, cordoning off the area as curious locals gathered at a distance. The scene was grim. The woman had no identification, no purse, no jewelry, nothing to tell police who she was or where she had come from. The only clue was the tarp itself, the kind used for camping or covering equipment, now a shroud for a life cut short. News of the discovery spread quickly through Georgetown. In a town where everyone knew each other, the idea that a stranger could meet such a fate was both terrifying and deeply unsettling. The local newspaper ran headlines about the unknown woman, and rumors swirled in diners and barbershops. Parents held their children a little closer, and the sense of safety that once blanketed the community began to unravel. The investigation began in earnest. Detectives scoured missing persons reports from across Kentucky and neighboring states. Artists created sketches of the woman's face, which were printed in newspapers and posted in police stations. But no one came forward to claim her. She was buried in a local cemetery under a simple headstone, marked only with the words "Tent Girl," a name given by the press, inspired by the tarp that concealed her. For years, the case grew colder. The Tent Girl's story faded into the background, a whispered legend among locals. But for the officers who worked the case, and for Wilbur Riddle, the memory never faded. They wondered who she was, what dreams she had, and who might be missing her somewhere far away. The years passed, but the mystery endured. Occasionally, the Tent Girl's story would resurface in the media, reigniting hope that someone, somewhere, would recognize her face. Police circulated her sketches again, and amateur sleuths began to take an interest, drawn by the haunting details and the sense of injustice. In the 1980s and 1990s, advances in forensic science offered new hope. Investigators exhumed the Tent Girl's remains, hoping that dental records or new techniques might reveal her identity. But each lead ended in disappointment. The case files grew thicker, but the answers remained elusive. Then, in the late 1990s, a new kind of investigator emerged: the Internet sleuth. Todd Matthews, a young man from Tennessee, became obsessed with the Tent Girl's story after hearing about it from his wife, whose family lived near the discovery site. Todd spent countless nights searching online databases, comparing missing persons reports, and connecting with others who refused to let the case go cold. Todd's dedication paid off. In 1998, he found a missing persons report from 1967 for a young mother named Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor, who had vanished from Lexington, Kentucky. The details matched: age, height, hair color, and the time frame. Todd contacted authorities, and soon, DNA testing was underway. The results were conclusive. After 3 decades, the Tent Girl finally had a name: Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor. The news brought a bittersweet sense of closure to her family, who had spent years wondering what had happened to their daughter, sister, and mother. The investigation revealed a tragic truth. Barbara had been killed by her husband, who later died in prison for an unrelated crime. The reasons for her murder remain unclear, lost to time and silence. But her story, once nearly forgotten, became a symbol of hope for other families searching for answers. The Tent Girl case changed the way missing persons investigations were handled. It inspired the creation of online databases and communities dedicated to giving names back to the nameless. Todd Matthews went on to help solve other cold cases, driven by the belief that every victim deserves to be remembered. Today, Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor rests beneath a new headstone, her real name finally etched in stone. Flowers are left by strangers who never knew her, but who feel the weight of her story. The tent girl's grave has become a place of remembrance, not just for her, but for all the lost and unidentified. The story of the tent girl is a reminder that even the most forgotten victims can speak again, if someone is willing to listen. Her legacy endures in every cold case reopened, every family reunited, and every name restored to the lost. Halloween morning, 1979. The sun barely crested the horizon as a thick fog clung to the banks of Interstate 35 near Georgetown, Texas. Beneath a concrete bridge, a fisherman made a grim discovery: the body of a young woman floating silently in the cold water. Her presence would haunt the town for decades to come. The woman was young, with auburn hair and delicate features. She wore nothing but a pair of bright orange socks, an image that would become her only identity. The rest of her clothing, her name, her story were all missing, swept away by the current or by time. The late 1970s in Texas was a time of change, oil booms, restless highways, and a growing sense of unease. Hitchhiking was common, and the roads were filled with drifters, runaways, and those searching for a new life. But for women, the freedom of the open road came with danger. Law enforcement arrived quickly, cordoning off the scene. The woman had been strangled, and there were signs of sexual assault. The only clue: those orange socks, vivid against the gray water and mud. Detectives scoured the area for evidence, but the river had washed away most of the answers. The local community was shaken. Rumors spread quickly. Was she a runaway, a hitchhiker, or someone from the nearby psychiatric hospital? Parents warned their children to stay close, and the bridge became a place of whispered stories and silent prayers. Investigators worked tirelessly, combing through missing persons reports from across the state and beyond. Artists created sketches of her face, which were printed in newspapers and posted in police stations. But no one came forward to claim her. She was known only as Orange Socks. The case quickly grew cold. Forensic science in 1979 was limited. No DNA databases, no digital records. Detectives relied on fingerprints, dental records, and the hope that someone, somewhere, would recognize her face. But the leads dried up, and the Orange Socks case faded into the background. Yet, for the officers who found her, and for the people of Georgetown, the memory lingered. The bridge became a symbol of loss, and the woman in orange socks a ghost haunting the edges of memory. In the years that followed, the case would resurface in the media. Serial killer Henry Lee Lucas confessed to her murder, but his reputation for false confessions made his claims suspect. The truth remained elusive, and the Orange Socks case became a cautionary tale for investigators everywhere. For decades, her face appeared on missing persons lists, and her case was used in forensic training. Generations of detectives studied her file, hoping that new technology or a fresh perspective might finally reveal her name. The world changed around her. The highways grew busier, technology advanced, and the science of forensics leapt forward. In the 2000s, DNA analysis became a powerful tool, and investigators exhumed her remains, hoping for a breakthrough. But even as technology improved, the answers remained out of reach. The Orange Socks Jane Doe became a symbol for all the lost and unidentified, her story echoing in the halls of law enforcement and the hearts of those who never stopped searching. In 2019, a new hope emerged. Genetic genealogy, using DNA to trace family trees, offered a final chance. Scientists in sterile labs worked late into the night, piecing together fragments of identity from the smallest traces. The breakthrough came quietly. Her name was Deborah Jackson, a 23-year-old from Abilene, Texas. Her family, believing she had simply moved on, had never reported her missing. The revelation brought both relief and sorrow. A life lost, a mystery solved, but justice still out of reach. Even with her identity restored, the question of who killed Deborah Jackson remains unanswered. The case is only half solved, and her bright orange socks endure as a haunting symbol of all the questions that linger in the dark. Today, flowers sometimes appear on the bridge where she was found. Strangers pause to remember a woman they never knew, but whose story touched them all. The Orange Socks case is a reminder that every victim deserves a name, and every story deserves to be told. For the investigators, the townspeople, and the family she left behind, the search for answers continues. The Orange Sox Jane Doe, now Deborah Jackson, remains a symbol of hope, loss, and the enduring power of memory. On November 1st, 1980, the body of a teenage girl was found in a ditch along Interstate 45 near Huntsville, Texas. The morning was cold and gray, the highway stretching endlessly through the piney woods of East Texas. A passing truck driver spotted something unusual in the brush. A flash of yellow, a shape that didn't belong. Police arrived quickly, their flashing lights cutting through the morning mist. The scene was grim. The girl had been beaten, sexually assaulted, and strangled. She wore a yellow pullover, jeans, and high-heeled sandals, clothes that seemed out of place for a teenager alone on a rural road. She carried no identification, no purse, no wallet, no notes. Nothing to tell police who she was or where she had come from. The only clues were her clothing and a few personal items: a necklace, a pair of sandals, and a small key. News of the discovery spread quickly through Walker County. In a small town, tragedy travels fast. Parents held their children closer, and rumors began to swirl. Who was the girl? Where had she come from? Was there a killer among them? Witnesses remembered seeing her the night before at a local truck stop, asking for directions to the Ellis prison unit. She seemed lost, but determined. Some said she was looking for someone. Others recalled her accent, possibly from the Northeast. Truck drivers and waitresses described her as polite, maybe a little scared, but no one knew her name. She became known only as Walker County Jane Doe, a mystery that would haunt the region for decades. Investigators worked tirelessly. They combed through missing persons reports from across Texas and beyond, compared dental records, and sent her fingerprints to agencies nationwide. Artists created sketches of her face, which were printed in newspapers and posted in police stations. But no one came forward to claim her. The case grew cold. Years passed, and the girl's grave in the local cemetery became a place of quiet remembrance. Locals left flowers, and some whispered prayers for the lost child with no name. But the memory of Walker County Jane Doe never faded for the officers who found her, or for the community that adopted her as one of their own. Each year, on the anniversary of her death, someone would leave a bouquet at her grave, a silent promise that she would not be forgotten. As forensic science advanced, hope flickered anew. In the 1990s and 2000s, investigators exhumed her remains, hoping that new technology, DNA analysis, isotope testing, might reveal her origins. Each test brought more questions than answers. The community rallied around the case. Local newspapers ran stories, amateur sleuths posted online, and a new generation of detectives took up the search. The internet brought together people from across the country, all determined to give the Jane Doe her name back. In 2022, after 41 years, a breakthrough finally came. Using advanced DNA testing and genetic genealogy, scientists identified her as Sherry Ann Jarvis, a 14-year-old from Forest Lake, Minnesota, who had run away from a youth home months before her death. The news sent shockwaves through both communities, Minnesota and Texas. Sherry's family, who had spent decades wondering what happened to their daughter, finally had answers. But the truth was bittersweet. Her short, tragic life had ended hundreds of miles from home, alone and afraid. Investigators pieced together her final days. Sherry had traveled south, possibly hitchhiking, searching for someone or something. She was last seen at the truck stop asking for directions, her fate sealed by a stranger's violence. Today, Sherry Ann Jarvis is remembered not just as a victim, but as a daughter, a sister, and a symbol of hope for other families searching for answers. Her grave now bears her real name, and the community that once called her Jane Doe gathers each year to honor her memory. But the case is not closed. The person responsible for Sherry's murder has never been caught. Detectives continue to follow leads, hoping that time, technology, or a guilty conscience will finally bring justice. The story of Walker County Jane Doe is a reminder that every victim deserves a name, and every story deserves to be told. In the quiet corners of Texas, her legacy endures. In every cold case reopened, every family reunited, and every stranger who leaves a flower on her grave. December 1st, 1948. The sun rose over Somerton Beach near Adelaide, Australia, casting long shadows on the sand. Early morning walkers found the body of a man lying neatly against the seawall, his head propped against the rocks, as if he had simply fallen asleep. The man was well dressed in a crisp suit and polished shoes, but every label had been carefully removed from his clothing. He carried no wallet, no identification, and not a single personal belonging that could reveal his name. Police arrived quickly, cordoning off the scene. The man's pockets held only a pack of cigarettes, a used bus ticket, and a small metal comb. But the most baffling clue was a tiny scrap of paper hidden deep in a fob pocket with the words "Tamam Shud," Persian for "it is finished," torn from a rare book of poetry. The book itself, a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, was later found in the glove compartment of a car parked near the beach. Inside, investigators discovered a series of strange handwritten codes and a phone number that led to a local nurse named Jessica Thompson. Jessica denied knowing the dead man, but witnesses recalled her reaction. She was visibly shaken when shown his death mask. The connection between them, if any, remained a mystery. The case quickly captured the public's imagination. Newspapers splashed the story across their front pages. The Somerton man became a national obsession, with theories ranging from suicide to Cold War espionage. Some believed he was a spy sent to Australia on a secret mission. Others thought he was a jilted lover or a man fleeing a troubled past. Detectives pored over every detail. They traced the origins of his clothing, analyzed the contents of his stomach, and even reconstructed his face in plaster, hoping someone would recognize him. But no one ever came forward. Forensic science in the 1940s was limited. Toxicology tests were inconclusive, and the codes found in the book defied every expert. The Somerton man's fingerprints and dental records matched no one in Australia or anywhere else in the world. As the years passed, the mystery only deepened. Amateur sleuths, journalists, and conspiracy theorists all tried to crack the case. The Somerton man became a symbol of the unknown, a riddle that haunted generations. Over the decades, new theories emerged. Some believed the Somerton man was poisoned with a rare, undetectable toxin. Others speculated he was involved in international espionage, his death a warning or a cover-up. The codes in the Rubaiyat were analyzed by cryptographers, but no one could decipher their meaning. The Somerton man's grave became a place of pilgrimage for the curious and the grieving. Flowers appeared on the anniversary of his death. His story inspired books, documentaries, and even songs, each retelling adding new layers to the legend. Decades of forensic analysis brought no answers. In the 2000s, scientists exhumed his body, hoping that modern DNA techniques might finally reveal his identity. But the results were inconclusive, and the mystery endured. Then, in 2022, a breakthrough. Using advanced genetic genealogy, researchers identified the Somerton man as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne. After more than 70 years, the world finally had a name, but even with his identity revealed, the questions remain. How did Carl Webb end up dead on a lonely beach, dressed for a formal event with a cryptic message in his pocket? Was he a victim of circumstance or something far more sinister? The Somerton man's case remains one of the world's most enduring mysteries, a story that blurs the line between ordinary tragedy and something far stranger. His legacy endures in every unsolved case, every code that resists the light, and every name waiting to be spoken. Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor, Deborah Jackson, Sherry Ann Jarvis, Carl Webb. For years they were just faces without names. Now we know who they were, but the shadows that took them still hide in the dark. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true stories that refuse to fade. And remember, some names are whispered by the living, others by the dead.